Her name was Lily. He didn't know that yet, not until much later, but he noticed her long before she ever looked at him. She was sitting across the hall, radiant in a pale blue dress, her laughter soft and unguarded like sunlight breaking through clouds. Everyone seemed drawn to her warmth. Daniel caught himself watching her, then immediately looked away, feeling foolish. He had promised himself he wouldn't feel this way again. His heart was still too full of grief and guilt for smiling sometimes when he remembered how his daughter, Emma, would dance in the living room with her tiny hands raised, begging him to spin her like Mommy used to. When the music changed to a slow, tender melody, couples drifted to the dance floor. Daniel took a sip of water, pretending to check his phone, doing anything to look busy enough not to be invited. He was used to being the quiet one at the edges, the man who helped others celebrate but never joined the joy himself. But then, something unexpected happened. A shadow fell across him, and before he could turn, a gentle voice said, "You look like you forgot how to dance." He turned, and there she was, the woman in the blue dress, Lily. Her hand was already outstretched toward him, a teasing smile on her lips, her eyes kind but confident. Before Daniel could think, before he could come up with an excuse about bad knees or a tired back, she took his hand and whispered, "Dance with me." For a heartbeat, Daniel froze. He wanted to say no, to step back into his safe little world of silence. But something in her voice cracked open a part of him he'd locked away. And then, somehow, they were moving. Slowly, awkwardly at first, like two strangers learning a forgotten language. But as the song flowed, Daniel began to remember. He remembered what it felt like to hold someone's hand and not feel broken. He remembered what it was to breathe in rhythm with another heart. They danced in quiet simplicity, no dramatic twirls, no fancy steps, just two souls finding a little peace in the middle of a noisy world. Lily talked softly as they moved, about how she knew the bride from college, how she'd come alone tonight too. She said she noticed how Daniel stood at the edge like he didn't belong, and something in her couldn't bear to let him fade into the background. He listened, barely speaking, afraid his voice might give away the tremor of emotion rising in his chest. When the song ended, he thanked her and started to step away, but she stopped him with a smile that felt like an anchor and a promise all at once. "You have kind eyes," she said. "Don't let the world make you forget how to use them." And then she walked away before he could reply. That night after the wedding, Daniel couldn't sleep. He replayed that moment in his mind again and again, the way her hand fit in his, the warmth of her words. It had been so long since anyone had looked at him not with pity, but with quiet understanding. He didn't know why it mattered so much, but it did. The next morning, he found a folded note slipped into the pocket of his jacket. It was from her. Just a few words. "Sometimes the dance chooses us. Coffee." Below was a phone number. Daniel stared at it for a long time. His heart thudded with something he hadn't felt in years, possibility. But old fears ran deep. For days he didn't call. He told himself he was too busy, with work, with Emma's school projects, with life. Yet every time he saw his daughter dance in the kitchen, he thought of Lily's smile and that moment under the wedding lights. Finally, one evening, when Emma had fallen asleep with her favorite book beside her, Daniel picked up his phone and sent a simple message. "About that coffee, I think I owe you a dance first." Their first meeting was quiet, gentle, and a little nervous. They talked about life, about loss, about love, about finding pieces of themselves they thought were gone. Lily told him she had been through heartbreak too, a long engagement that ended when her fiancé chose someone else. For years, she'd convinced herself she wasn't meant for love either. But seeing Daniel at the wedding, so still, so quietly hurting, something in her wanted to remind him, and maybe herself, that broken hearts can still beat beautifully. Weeks turned into months. They met often. Coffee turned into dinners, dinners into long walks, and walks into moments where silence said more than words. Emma adored Lily from the start. She would draw her pictures and ask when Miss Lily was coming over. For Daniel, watching his daughter laugh again felt like watching the sunrise after a long winter. Slowly his walls began to fall. But life, as always, tested them. One night, Lily came over to find Daniel sitting on the porch steps, his hands trembling. He'd received a letter. His late wife's parents wanted custody rights to Emma, claiming Daniel's work schedule made him an unfit guardian. It shattered him. He felt like the universe was punishing him for daring to find happiness again. Lily knelt beside him, took his shaking hand, and said softly, "You don't have to fight this alone." In the weeks that followed, Lily stood by him, through court hearings, sleepless nights, and moments of despair. She was there when he almost gave up. She was there when he finally won, and when he broke down, tears falling for all he had endured. She simply held him, not to fix him, but to remind him that love is not about perfection, it's about presence. Months later, on a quiet spring morning, Daniel stood at another wedding, this time his own. The air was filled with soft music and laughter, just like the night they met. As he waited at the altar, he saw Lily walking toward him, radiant in white, her smile trembling with tears. Beside him, little Emma held a basket of flowers, beaming with joy. When Lily reached him, she whispered the same words she'd said the first time they met, "Dance with me." And in that moment, Daniel finally understood. Life doesn't wait for the perfect timing or the perfect person. It gives you a second chance when you least expect it. Sometimes when you're just a guest, standing quietly in the background, waiting for the courage to live again. As the music swelled and they danced beneath a sky full of light, Daniel realized that love hadn't left him after all. It had simply been waiting, patient, gentle, and kind, for someone to take his hand and remind him how to move again.